There are a number of challenges around transparency in CTV. At Philo, we pride ourselves on prioritizing transparency and brand safety and signaling in the programmatic bid stream. So we're passing things like, genre and rating for contextual. One of the big challenges that has come up is around show level data, because this is something that advertisers are used to seeing in connection with their traditional linear buys. In CTV, particularly in a programmatic environment, you have one impression that is being delivered to a specific household watching a specific piece of content, and there are privacy restrictions around what you can include in a bid request around that household level data. So that is a challenge, particularly for pre-bid, even for publishers who are able to sell against specific content. I would say another big challenge is around standardization of signals. That is on the signals that we are passing from the sell side, but also the signals that we are seeing from the buy side. And I can give examples of each. For the sell side signals, I mentioned that we're passing genre. We are leveraging the signals that we use to populate our channel guide. And so those are things like sitcom, like, drama, like Western. But there's no universal taxonomy of genre that has been adopted at this point. So the signals that we're passing as one publisher may not be the signals that another publisher is passing, may not be the signals that the buy side is necessarily looking for. So I think there's still a lot to be, figured out in that space. In terms of the signals that we're receiving on the sell side, we see a lot of ad creatives that are not fully decorated with metadata like IAB category, like a domain. And so what that means is that even when we are implementing things like IAB category blocks in our ad server, that there are some creatives that can fall through the cracks when they're not actually passing that data through. Another thing that we see is we'll get creatives, the same creative, from the same advertiser coming through two different demand paths with different IDs. And so those are all challenges in terms of, pod optimization, frequency capping, creative separation, that would be helped by more standardization coming from the buy side.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds really daunting. So what kind of technology or solutions would help reinforce safety and transparency?
Yeah, so we're using a number of different solutions. Some of them are as simple as, if an advertiser is looking to avoid a particular type of content, we can implement that on, a deal basis. So we can use the genre or the rating signals that we're passing and set up deals that don't include anything with a rating over R or don't include news content if that's something that the buyer is trying to avoid. We also use a number of tools in our ad server. IAB category blocks are one, media file deduping is another, and then we actually have a secondary check on that in our proprietary SSAI where we're doing audio fingerprinting. And so those help us, optimize in the pod for a better viewing experience and for that brand safety for the advertiser. We started working with another partner recently that actually uses AI to scan and transcribe the creatives that are coming in and fill in some of that missing metadata. So in places where we're maybe not seeing the IAB category, they can help us fill in that gap so we get better coverage and have better enforcement of our rules overall. And then one other thing that is not a current tool or solution that we're using, but something that we're hopeful about is the IAB's ACIF, which is hopefully going to drive adoption around a universal creative ID, which I think will also help improve, the viewing experience and also our ability to optimize campaigns for advertisers.
And so, are there any other improvements in CTV that can help with brand safety so that it more closely resembles the linear television experience?
So, back on the topic of show level, while there is a challenge on pre bid, I think there are some solutions coming up now that look at post bid aggregated reporting at the show level that I think are really interesting and potentially a strong solution to provide advertisers with peace of mind around where their ads are showing. It would be similar to reporting that MVPDs have been providing to local buyers for a long time. Um, and I also think it could be an interesting area for learnings because, especially in CTV, where a lot of the buying is audience driven, um, getting to understand on those campaigns the content that, their viewers are really leaning into, that those audiences are leaning into, and whether or not that aligns with assumptions that have been made based on, linear plans.
Well, Alden, this has been really informative. Thanks for coming in and talking to us. Looking ahead, what is your hope for CTV, let's say in the next year or so?
I think we're hoping and really just looking forward to, continuing to collaborate with our partners. All of these things around standardization across both the buy and sell side are only going to happen if people are working together. And so I think there's a lot of green space in terms of making that happen, and we're excited to do that.